Hello and welcome to Five to Flow's five-part series on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. My name is AJ Villarosa and I am the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at Five to Flow. Five to Flow wanted to launch this five-part series to provide a forum for people to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion and how to drive momentum in today's corporate world. Throughout my experience across the globe, I have found that the only way to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion is to understand and listen to people's stories. And the only way to do that is to lead with empathy and compassion. We hope you listen actively and we hope you engage us in a meaningful conversation based on your own experiences. We hope you enjoy this series and welcome to Five to Flow.
I'm Kate Visconti, founder and CEO of Five to Flow, and I'm so excited to have an amazing panel with us today to talk about focusing on DEI to promote peace, solidarity, and harmony. What an amazing topic. I'm super fortunate to have this network here with me today of some of the most amazing people I've worked with over the years, and wanted to kick off with some introductions. Like I said, I'm Kate Visconti, the founder and CEO of Five to Flow. I started Five to Flow based on a big need I saw across the world, which was to support individuals in the workplace to feel like they're able to truly express who they are in a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment. So this is our first webinar. Super excited to have the panelists here with us today. So let me do some quick introductions. We have Laura Mignott here with us today. She's the CEO of DFlash. I don't want to undermine that without also sharing. She's the curator of the Reset podcast, which I was featured on in November. So please go out and check out her podcast. We also have Lorena Morales, the VP of Marketing for Go Nimbly, an organization I'm super fond of, as most of the people who work there are former colleagues of mine. And so I'm really excited to have you here, Lorena. We have Don Daves-Rougeaux, who is the CEO of Rougeaux MSC, and he has been a lifelong friend as well, who I've worked with on lots of education programs. Lisa Pinckney Wong, who is a board member for Oasis for Girls and a retired chef who I met when I first moved to San Francisco. I've been working with her and some of the Oasis for Girls graduates. Last but not least, we'll have joining at some point, hopefully, Leanne Wong, who is our VP of Learning and Development at the PCC and a PCC certified leadership coach. Leanne and I also go way back as we worked together at Blue Wolf and where she was a recruiter. So why I picked this panel, obviously for me, passionate, near and dear to my heart, people I've worked with over the years. But as we introduce the topic, it'll become very clear. So what is the UN International Day of Living Together in Peace? Something that I found super interesting was actually yesterday for those of us in the United States, and for those abroad, it was May 16th. This International Day of Living Together in Peace was put together to mobilize efforts for an international community to promote peace, tolerance, inclusion, understanding, and solidarity. This means so much to me after living abroad in England and in New Zealand and working in nearly, 20 or 30 countries over the years with global organizations and witnessing how DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion issues are rampant globally, not just here in the United States where I've spent most of my career. We're hoping to incite compassion and engage in a meaningful conversation today to promote reconciliation, forgiveness, and compassion, and focus on acts of service to work with communities, faith leaders, and other relevant actors to unite the human race. So I assembled this particular panel because of this topic, that I've worked with each of you on topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how important I feel like education, awareness, marketing and communications on these topics, and effective recruitment and onboarding policies within organizations support living together in peace. So with that, I'm going to start with our first question. So for each of you, what's the one thing you're doing to promote the ideals of the UN International Day of Living Together in Peace within your organization?
Sure, thank you, Kate. I think if I have to kind of pinpoint only one thing, even though I believe everything is kind of a multi effort type of thing, I would say, especially during the pandemic, and right now, I mean, I guess we can't say that it's over, but in these times, I think the one thing that I am very effectively doing more than ever is making sure that I develop tolerance towards not only my teammates or my colleagues, but also towards my customers. I think the time being, everyone is we were forced to deal with things that we didn't really know how to deal with. And so our temperaments, our way of engaging with change has been very impactful. So I think if there's one thing, that's what I am doing. And what I mean by increasing tolerance, I am making sure that at least once or twice per week, I am reaching out to a customer or someone or a partner or someone that I really haven't touched on the past year or so. So I think those things are important, to go back to kind of exercise the social muscles, because we are becoming caregivers, and I think it's important.
I love that. Laura, as you think about that with the many interviews you've done recently and for your own organization, same question.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think first it's calling people in. And I think, as folks are now beginning to kind of go back to work, but also act as if like we're back into normal phases, it's really hard for some folks to kind of get back into that groove. And so one of the things we've been doing as an organization is sort of having these sort of call-in sessions with our team, and we have them on Fridays, and we just sort of go through like what's happening with everyone personally versus like this is a status call. It's just a call-in call, and so we can talk, we can laugh, and it gives everybody a moment to kind of breathe, because I think we're all getting so busy. Now that we're home, there's no turning off anymore. And so that ability to actually have that time to laugh, joke, and not take the world so seriously is so important. And similarly, with a lot of the folks who've been coming on the podcast recently, a lot of the senior leaders who I'm speaking to are very much in this kind of, well, I want people to come back, but I also don't want to screw up the productivity. So it's like having these open dialogue conversations that prior to COVID, probably didn't really have, but now we're actually able to kind of have this fresh conversation within our organizations about like what works best for you, and it doesn't feel as if like you're getting called into the principal's office, but instead it's a real it's a meaningful conversation that is valuable for everyone in the organization.
I love that transparency. So Don, I know you've probably written a couple grants on similar topics and thought about this quite a bit. How about you?
Sure. Yeah, I think we're working on two areas specifically that are related to this topic. One, as you can imagine, that young people who are faced with the conditions around COVID and the pandemic are having delays in their educational attainment. And so when you have those gaps in your educational attainment, that actually increases or decreases your lifelong earnings. So we're laser focused on trying to get young people back into the classrooms at both in the K-12 and at the community colleges. And also we're trying to make sure that young adults who are, by and large, many of them are essential workers, we're trying to get them to get re-credentialed or certified in the community colleges. Now, as you can imagine, most students who go to colleges are trying to get, are taking credit-bearing coursework. So our goal is to get young people to have family-sustaining wages by the time they're 25 years of age. Wow. And so we want to make sure, though, that we're not so focused on that in the current climate that we're losing sight of the need to get people back to work immediately. So while we want someone to be able to go to Amazon, for example, and have a high, that level of wage earning, based on their certifications, we also know that it's sometimes more important to just get them into the workforce, but to work with those employers to ensure that they stay on track to getting the kinds of credentials that they need in order to get those family sustaining wages.
I absolutely love that. And what a great segue to Lisa and your thoughts on Oasis for Girls and how maybe they even transcend post education into some coaching and support for other young folks.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Kate. For me, I'm going to be very plain spoken and just saying that I've learned to meet people where they are. So, with the girls, there are so many diverse needs for each of the girls. I don't have any direct contact with them, but I work with a board who plans for them. And we just have to be able to support them where they need support, give them what they need. And as my members, other members of the board, they're busy. They're younger than I am. They have children and young children running around. So I have to learn to be giving of their time, of their different heritage and cultural demands, and like I said, meet people where they are. That's the best thing that I can do.
I love that. And I think it's a perfect segue too, also to Leanne, who does recruiting. So, Leanne, the question, the one thing you're doing to promote the ideals of UN International Day of Living Together in Peace.
Yeah, I think I certainly agree with Lisa's point around meeting people where they are. And so from an organizational perspective, I see a lot of people investing, or a lot of organizations investing in DEI training around specifically inclusive leadership, which is a really hot topic these days. So how do you lead inclusively and really make sure that everyone's voice is heard and perspectives feel welcome? And then I think another key sort of opportunity that organizations have is creating an open space forum to have these types of discussions that we are having today, but really bring that into the organization, because I mean, this year has brought a lot of trauma to a lot of different groups, and being able to process that in a safe and productive way really is, I think, something that progressive companies are thinking about doing.
That is such a good point. And I think about the trauma that people are going through and some of my own, and trying to take what we've learned from that trauma and really make it not in vain and support people in our networks. So thank you all for taking time on that question.
Thank you for joining us today, and stay tuned next week for part 2 of our series on DEI in the workplace.